Yeah, so when I'm in my classes, it's really funny because sometimes my students kind of treat me like a rock star instead of a teacher. In my opinion, I think learning English is a really good way to learn about the world and have access to new opportunities.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Halo sahabat Madrasah Indonesia. It's my pleasure to see you again in the program Madrasa Podcast or Modcast. Today I'm so excited because our team can stay here in Madrasah Alia 2 Kulon Progo, the one of the best vocational madrasah in Indonesia. And in this occasion, I'm accompanied by some special guest. She is the volunteer from Peace Corps Indonesia, which delegate their volunteers to some places, and such as Indonesia. Volunteers will give an assistance in learning English language in some school. And this year, there are 3 volunteers are delegated to teach English in Madrasa. One of the volunteers is Miss Niki Docteri. Okay, welcome to Madrasa Podcast, Miss Niki.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It is okay if I call you Niki or Mbak Niki?
Yeah.
Or Sis Niki?
Whatever suits you.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing well, yeah.
You're doing well, okay. Niki, would you like to introduce yourself to our subscriber or our Madrasa students?
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Doherty and everybody here calls me Miss Niki or Niki. I am a volunteer from the United States of America. I come from a state called Oregon in the Pacific Northwest part of America, close to California. And this year I have been teaching English at a madrasa here in Indonesia, and I have been able to join this amazing project called the Madrasa English Community, and I've given presentations and had some really fun activities with the madrasas around Indonesia.
Okay, Niki, how do you feel so far living in Indonesia, especially in Blitar?
I am super excited to be living in Indonesia. It definitely took time to adapt to some of the differences between the United States and Indonesia, but I'm very thankful for all of the new friends I have met, and I think Indonesia is very welcoming to foreigners, and they're very excited to have someone like me here to teach English. And yeah, it's been really fun, and I've had a lot of really fun new experiences this year.
How long you stay in Blitar?
So far, I think I've been in Blitar about 8 or 9 months. I arrived to Indonesia last January, but with my program, we have 10 weeks of training before we go and we start teaching at a school. So in March, I graduated from training and I began my work at the madrasa that I'm at now.
Okay, now, Niki, I will ask you about Madrasa English Community. Would you tell me to explain what is this program?
So the Madrasa English Community is a partnership between Peace Corps and the Ministry of Religious Affairs in Indonesia. So the volunteers that are placed at madrasas, currently there are 3 of us, but soon there will be more Peace Corps volunteers joining us. But basically we have started doing these events where the Peace Corps volunteers, we make presentations or kind of like a mock English class, and then it's broadcasted on Zoom, so not only our students can benefit from learning English from us, but also students from all over Indonesia. It's really fascinating to see how many people from not just Java, but all over Indonesia are tuning in to get to experience learning English from a native speaker, and we talk about culture, we do question and answers, and we talk about language topics, and we're really just trying to increase motivation for Indonesian students to want to learn English and learn about the world and different cultures. And this is a really good way for us to kind of promote that to the students of madrasas all over Indonesia.
Now you are volunteers as English teacher. Is there any difficulties to teach English in madrasa school?
Yeah, I will say just coming from a different culture, it did take a lot of time to get used to things here. And of course, there's culture shock when coming to a new culture. And yeah, so at my madrasa, part of the goal with Peace Corps is that we're teaching with English teachers here. So I don't teach English classes alone. I work with other teachers at madrasas, and we work together. We're trying to plan ways to like make classes more interesting and motivate students more, which is a challenge because students in madrasas, they have many classes and long days at school. So many times students fall asleep or aren't interested. They'd rather watch TikTok or play Mobile Legends or something. So it has been challenging to find what interests the students and to pursue that and make it a fun way to learn English. And another challenge, I would say, is as a native English speaker, I learned English very differently than my students will. So I think in Indonesia, it's very common to focus on grammar and to focus on learning about English. But often, I think many teachers in Indonesia forget how important it is to practice. So as I'm helping my school, I have been trying to emphasize how important it is to practice the skills that they would use in the real world. So as important as grammar is, I think it's more important to have the conversation practice, to have listening practice, and to understand the language. Because as a native speaker, I don't have to think about, oh, does this article fit this sentence? Or is that verb 3? Or anything like that. And so I think, the way I think in English is very different than my students will. And we're kind of trying to figure out how to be flexible with both of those models and adapt them to help the students be successful.
Okay. And make our student more confident, right?
Yes, of course, yes. We want the students to be confident. We want them to be willing to try and speak English. It is a hard language, but we want them to not be too shy or worried about making mistakes because many times people don't have perfect English, but if you understand them, it's okay. And you can still communicate even if you don't know all the grammar rules or anything. And I think that's what's important, is learning English for communication and not just for your studies.
And understanding each other,
Yeah, exactly.
Niki, do you have a funny experience with student? Would you tell me what is a funny moment?
Yeah, give me a second to think on that one. Yeah, so when I'm in my classes, it's really funny because sometimes my students kind of treat me like a rock star instead of a teacher. Like they're so excited that they get Miss Niki. And so there's been times when I'm teaching and they all look very confused. And so I switch and I start speaking Bahasa Indonesia. And everyone is so shocked and everything that I find it very funny. And as the students get to know me, they're used to it. But at first, the students would think it was crazy when I could speak even a sentence of Bahasa Indonesia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you learn how to speak bahasa?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not great, but I started learning when I arrived in Indonesia. Saya bisa perkenalkan nama saya Niki, saya dari Amerika Serikat, tapi saya tinggal di Blitar. Saya suka budaya Indonesia dan saya punya teman-teman di sini juga. Kami suka jalan-jalan di keliling.
Nah, itu udah pasti sih. How about food in Indonesia? Do you like any kind of food in Indonesia?
Yeah. Food in Indonesia has been an adjustment for me because I don't like spicy food. I really can't eat it. So even when people are like, oh, it's only a little spicy, it's usually too spicy for me. So I have to be a little careful, but I do have several foods here that are kind of my favorites. I really like nasi goreng. It's kind of a classic comfort food. And I like satay ayam and
bakso.
I kind of like bakso. It's not my favorite, but I like it enough. I like mie goreng,
Mie goreng.
ayam goreng,
Nah.
yeah, ote-ote, yeah.
Okay, Niki, how many times do you join in Madrasa English community?
So the Madrasa English community events started in May of 2023, and it's usually a monthly event. So once a month, the Madrasa English community hosts an event at one of the schools of the Peace Corps volunteers. So there are 3 volunteers, and we rotate who presents. So first there was Miss Sarah in Pare, and then myself in June, and then Miss Ella in West Java. And then we kind of rotate through. And so I believe at this point we have done 7 events, and I have presented at 2 of those events. So I've made like a PowerPoint presentation and talked about either culture or language aspects as my topics.
Okay, Niki, you have taught here almost a year, right? Do you have any suggestion or motivation for all students Madrasa for English, for studying English? Okay, Niki, you have taught English here almost a year. So, do you have any suggestion or motivation for all student Madrasa to study English?
Topics for the presentations was actually about why English is a good language to learn. And in my opinion, I think learning English is a really good way to learn about the world and have access to new opportunities. So speaking for myself, as an English speaker, I've been able to travel and I don't have to learn a new language each time I go somewhere because many countries know English. So if I go to Japan or if I go to France, I can probably ask a question in English instead of learning Japanese and then French and new languages each time. So that's one benefit, is if you want to travel, it makes it a lot easier if you know at least a little bit of English. As well as there's opportunities for jobs and studying and living in different places if you know English. So I think for our students, depending on what their goals are, it can be really helpful to have English as much as they can, and that they can do it confidently. As far as how to learn English, I think some of the easiest ways is not with a textbook and not hearing a teacher lecture, but instead finding ways to make it interactive. So playing games in the class or something like that. And then for students outside of class time, if they watch videos in English or read books or movies, those are great ways to do it. And they can find something that interests them and pursue that. So I've heard of several people in Indonesia learning English by watching the Harry Potter movies. Or their favorite TV show or something like that. So it's easy to listen and comprehend English. You can pay attention to different accents, and that can be really interesting and fascinating to explore. Do I want to speak this way like someone from England, or do I want to talk like an American or an Australian? I think it's really fun to explore language in that way. And with modern technology, it's easier than ever to have access to language learning apps or programs online. It's easy. I can pull up a YouTube video and I can read the subtitles and listen to a language, and that will help me understand. I can do that for Bahasa Indonesia as well, or for any language. But I think that practice where you have more exposure to hearing the language and to speaking the language back to something, even if it's just in the mirror, practicing how to say something. I think there's a lot of ways to do it, and I think maybe the hard part is just finding the motivation for students. So I do hope that the students find a way to incorporate their interests with their English studies as well.
Niki, would you like to ask all of subscribers in Madrasa to subscribe, comment, and like our channel? Yeah, sure.
Okay. Halo sahabat Madrasah, jangan lupa subscribe, comment, like, dan share KSKK Madrasah channel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Niki, for your time. We hope you still have much time to dedicate yourself, your life for all students all over the world, especially in Indonesia. And we hope our conversation useful and inspired for us and make us motivated to learn English. Thank you so much. I'm Sri Rahayu. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.